Kate Williams stood at the kitchen window of their modest suburban home, watching her husband William load boxes into their old pickup truck. The morning sun cast long shadows across their front yard, where their children had played just yesterday. Everything felt different. The silence between them had grown thicker than the autumn fog that rolled in from the nearby hills. 23. Years of marriage had brought them through many storms, but this one felt final. William's job at the manufacturing plant had ended. 6 months ago, when the company moved overseas, despite countless applications and interviews, nothing had come through. The bills kept piling up like autumn leaves, and their savings had dried up faster than puddles after a summer rain. Kate remembered the night everything changed. They sat at their dining room table, surrounded by overdue notices and rejection. Letters. William's hands shook as he held the final eviction notice. 30 days, he whispered, his voice breaking. We have 30 days to find somewhere else to go. Their daughter Emma, now 19 and in college, had offered to drop out and come home to help. Their son Michael, 17 and a senior in high school, had suggested getting a job instead of playing football. But William wouldn't hear of it. Your education comes first, he had said firmly, though Kate could see the pain in his eyes. The hardest part wasn't losing the house where they had raised their children, where they had celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, where they had dreamed of growing old together. The hardest part was watching William blame himself for something that wasn't his fault. He had worked faithfully for the same company for 15 years, never missing a day, unless one of the children was sick. He had been Employee of the Month 7 times and had trained dozens of new workers. Kate tried to keep the family together as their world fell apart. She picked up extra shifts at the diner where she worked, coming home with aching feet and the smell of coffee in her hair. But her salary barely covered groceries, let alone the mortgage. She watched William's shoulders grow heavier each day as he searched for work, his confidence shrinking with each rejection. The neighbors began to whisper. When the for sale sign appeared in their yard, Mrs. Patterson from next door brought over a casserole and awkward condolences. If there's anything we can do, she said, but Kate knew there wasn't. Some problems were too big for casseroles and kind words. William's pride made everything worse. He refused help from Kate's sister, who had offered to let them stay in her guest room. He turned down assistance from their church, even though Pastor Martinez had discreetly mentioned emergency funds available for families in crisis. We'll figure it out ourselves, William insisted. But Kate wondered if his pride would cost them everything they had left. The children sensed the tension. Even though Kate and William tried to shield them from the worst of it, family dinners became quiet affairs, filled with forced smiles and careful conversation. Emma called less frequently from college, and when she did, her voice carried worry that no parent wants to hear in their child's voice. Late at night, Kate would lie awake, listening to William pace the hallway. Sometimes she would find him sitting on the front porch at dawn, staring at the sunrise, as if it might hold answers. She wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay, but the words felt hollow when she wasn't sure she believed them herself. The final straw came when William's unemployment benefits ended. They had exactly $47 in their checking account and a refrigerator that held more condiments than actual food. Kate found William in their bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed they had bought when they were newlyweds, holding a letter from his brother in Arizona. Tom says there's work out there, William said without looking up. Construction jobs, good pay. He can get me started right away. Kate's heart sank. Arizona was 2,000 miles away from everything they knew, from the life they had built, from the children who needed them nearby. We could all go, Kate suggested, though she knew it was impossible. Emma was in her second year at the local community college, and Michael needed to finish his senior year. Moving would destroy what little stability the children had left. William shook his head slowly. You need to stay with Michael. Make sure he graduates. Emma needs to know you're close by. His voice was steady, but Kate could see his hands trembling. I'll send money back every week. Once I get established, maybe you can all come out. Kate sat beside him on the bed where they had whispered dreams and shared fears for over 2 decades. There has to be another way, she said, but even as the words left her lips, she knew there wasn't. They'd explored every option, exhausted every possibility. This separation wasn't a choice. It was survival. The next 2 weeks passed like a blur of packing boxes and difficult conversations. Kate and William moved through their daily routines like actors playing roles they no longer understood. They sorted through 23 years of shared memories. Deciding what could fit in a pickup truck and what would have to be left behind, Kate found herself holding onto items that seemed meaningless to anyone else, but carried the weight of their entire relationship. The coffee mug William had given her on their first Valentine's Day as a married couple, the wooden spoon she had used to make pancakes every Sunday morning for the children, a photo of the 4 of them at the county fair, all smiling and covered in cotton candy. Back when their biggest worry was whether Michael would be tall enough to ride the roller coaster, William tried to maintain his usual strength. But Kate caught him wiping his eyes when he thought no one was looking. She found him one evening, in Michael's room, just sitting in the desk chair, staring at the walls covered with football posters and academic achievement certificates. "He's worked so hard," William whispered when he noticed Kate in the doorway. "I'm letting him down." "You're not letting anyone down," Kate replied, though her own voice wavered. "You're doing what you have to do for this family." But even as she said it, she wondered if they were making the right choice. The thought of sleeping in their bed alone, eating dinner without William's terrible jokes, facing Michael's senior year activities without his father there to cheer him on, felt overwhelming. Michael took the news better than expected, or at least he pretended to. "It's just temporary, right, Dad?" he asked, his voice trying to sound more mature than his 17 years. William nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Just until I get back on my feet, son. Maybe by graduation." Emma came home that weekend to say goodbye. Kate watched her daughter try to be strong for everyone else, organizing family photos into albums and helping pack kitchen items with military efficiency. But Kate noticed Emma slipping William's old work shirts into her suitcase, as if she could take pieces of him back to college with her. The hardest conversation was with Emma alone. They sat on the porch swing that William had built when Emma was 8, the same swing where he had taught both children to read during summer evenings. "Mom, are you and Dad okay?" Emma asked quietly. "I mean, really okay?" Kate considered lying, giving her daughter the comfort of believing everything would work out perfectly. Instead, she chose honesty. "We love each other, Emma. That hasn't changed. But we're scared, and we're tired, and we don't know what comes next. Your father needs to do this for his own sense of worth, and I need to be here for you and Michael." "What if he doesn't come back?" Emma asked, voicing the fear that had been keeping Kate awake at night. "He will," Kate said with more confidence than she felt. "Your father has never broken a promise to this family, and he's not going to start now." William's brother Tom called twice to confirm the job details and to assure them that William would have a place to stay until he could afford his own apartment. Tom's wife Sarah got on the phone to tell Kate that William would be welcome at family dinners and that she would make sure he ate properly. The kindness of distant relatives made the situation feel both more real and more painful. Kate began making lists of everything William would need to remember. Michael's football games were on Friday nights, and she would text updates and photos. Emma's college grades came out at the end of each semester, and she would scan and email the reports. The mortgage payment was due on the 15th of each month, and she would handle it with the money he sent. These practical details felt like building a bridge across the distance that would soon separate them. 3 days before William was scheduled to leave, Kate found him cleaning out the garage at midnight. He had organized his tools into neat rows, labeled boxes of hardware, and swept the floor until it was spotless. "Whoever rents this place will have a clean garage," he said. But Kate knew he was really trying to leave something perfect behind. Some evidence that he had been a good caretaker of their home. They made love that night with a desperation that spoke louder than any words they could have shared. Afterward, they lay in the darkness, Kate's head on William's chest, listening to his heartbeat and trying to memorize the rhythm. Neither of them slept much, both knowing that comfortable silence between them was running out. The morning of William's last day arrived gray and drizzly, as if the weather was matching their mood. Kate made his favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with cheese and bacon, though neither of them ate much. Michael sat at the table in his Letterman jacket, methodically eating cereal and avoiding eye contact with his father. "Take care of your mother," William told Michael, his voice thick with emotion. "Be the man of the house while I'm gone." Michael nodded solemnly. "I will, Dad. I promise." Kate wondered if 17 was too young to carry that kind of responsibility, but their circumstances had aged all of them in ways they were still discovering. The pickup truck sat loaded in the driveway like a silent witness to their family's unraveling. William had packed methodically, fitting his entire life into cardboard boxes and duffel bags. His work clothes, the toolbox his father had given. Him, a photo of the family from last Christmas, and the Bible Kate's mother had inscribed for their wedding day. Everything else would stay behind, waiting for a reunion that felt more like hope than certainty. Kate stood at the kitchen sink, washing the breakfast dishes with unusual care, as if the familiar routine could hold back time. Through the window, she watched William check the truck's oil and tire pressure for the third time. He was stalling, she realized, just as she was. Neither of them wanted to acknowledge that the moment of goodbye was approaching like an inevitable sunset. Michael appeared in his football gear, ready for morning practice. The normalcy of his routine felt surreal against the backdrop of his father's departure. "Coach says we might make it to state this year," he said, his voice carefully neutral. William looked up from the truck engine, pride and sadness warring in his expression. "I'll watch the games online when I can," William promised. "And your mother will send videos." The words hung in the air like smoke, visible reminders of all the moments he would miss. First downs and touchdowns, homecoming dance photos, college application deadlines, the thousand small victories and defeats that make up a teenager's life. Emma had driven up from college the night before, unable to stay away for her father's farewell. She sat on the front steps, still in her pajamas, clutching a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. Kate recognized her own coping mechanism in her daughter's stillness. Sometimes the only way to handle overwhelming emotion was to become very quiet and very still, hoping the storm would pass without destroying everything in its path. By 10 o'clock, there were no more excuses for delay. The truck was loaded, the route was planned, and Tom was expecting William by evening. Kate had packed sandwiches for the road and filled a thermos with coffee. The same lunch she had made for William's first day at the plant 15 years ago. The symmetry felt cruel. William gathered his family around the truck for what they all knew would be their last few minutes together. The autumn air carried the smell of burning leaves from a neighbor's yard. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked with cheerful ignorance of human heartbreak. "This isn't forever," William said, looking at each face in turn. "This is just what we have to do right now." Kate heard the uncertainty beneath his confidence. The way his voice caught on the word forever, she knew he was trying to convince himself as much as them. Michael stepped forward first, extending his hand in the formal way William had taught him to greet adults. But William pulled his son into a fierce hug instead. And Kate watched 17 years of father-son memories pass between them in that embrace. Michael's composure finally cracked, and he buried his face against William's shoulder, his shoulders, shaking with tears he had been holding back for weeks. "I'm proud of you," William whispered to his son. "Every single day I'm proud of you. Don't forget that." Emma's goodbye was quieter but no less intense. She had always been William's little girl. It's the one who would sit on his lap while he read the Sunday comics. It's the one who insisted he checked for monsters under her bed until she was 12. Now, she was a young woman facing her future without her father's daily guidance. "Finish college," William told her, holding her hands in both of his. "Don't you dare quit school because of this. Promise me." "I promise, Daddy." The childhood name slipped out, and Emma smiled through her tears. "But you have to promise me something too. Promise me you'll take care of yourself. Eat vegetables. Wear sunscreen. Call us every day." "Every day," William agreed, though they all knew life would interfere with that promise eventually. Kate had been dreading this moment since they had made the decision. How do you say goodbye to someone who has been part of your daily life for over 2 decades? How do you let go of the person who knows how you take your coffee, who can finish your sentences, who has held your hand through every crisis until now? They stood facing each other beside the loaded truck, and suddenly, 23 years of marriage felt both infinite and insufficient. Kate memorized the lines around William's eyes, gray threading through his dark hair. the way his hands gestured when he was nervous. She wanted to tell him not to go, to say they would figure out another way, but they had exhausted all other options. Take care of yourself, she said simply. Don't work too hard. Don't skip meals. Remember to call the doctor about your blood pressure medication. William nodded, his throat working as he tried to speak. I'll send money every week. Whatever I can spare. I'll call every night after dinner, just like always. They had discussed the practical arrangements. But now, those details seemed insignificant compared to the weight of separation. Kate realized that what frightened her most wasn't the financial uncertainty or the single parenting challenges ahead. What scared her was the possibility that distance might change who they were to each other. That love might not be enough to bridge the gap that circumstances were forcing between them. The final moments stretched between them like taffy, sweet and painful, and impossible to break cleanly. William opened the truck door and stood beside it, his hand resting on the metal frame as if it could anchor him to this moment, to this place. To the life he was leaving behind, Kate saw her reflection in the truck's side mirror and barely recognized herself. When had worry carved such deep lines around her eyes? When had her brown hair started showing so much gray? She looked like a woman who had been holding her breath for months, and she realized that in many ways she had been. Kate, William said softly, and she heard everything he couldn't say in the way he spoke her name. All the apologies for circumstances beyond his control, all the promises he hoped he could keep, all the love that felt too big for words but somehow too small to fix what was breaking. She stepped closer to him, close enough to smell his aftershave and see the tiny scar on his chin from where Michael had accidentally hit him with a baseball bat during backyard practice years ago. These intimate details of their shared life felt precious and fragile, like pressed flowers between the pages of a book she might never open again. I know, she replied, and she meant it. She knew he didn't want to go. She knew he felt like he was failing them. She knew he would work 18-hour days in the Arizona sun to send them money. She knew he would fall asleep every night, wondering if he had made the right choice. Michael cleared his throat awkwardly. Dad, you should probably go. It's a long drive. His practical words were meant kindly, but they landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of finality through the morning air. William nodded and climbed into the truck. The engine turned over with a reliable rumble that had carried their family through countless road trips and daily commutes. Kate remembered the day they had bought this truck, back when William's job seemed secure, and their biggest worry was whether they could afford the extended warranty. Emma waved from the porch steps, her college sweatshirt hanging loose on her small frame. Michael stood with his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, trying to look older than his years. Kate remained beside the driver's side window, her hand resting on the door as if she could physically prevent William from leaving. 2,000 miles, William said, though they both knew the distance by heart. 30 hours of driving, if I don't stop much. He was giving her details to hold on to, concrete facts that might make the separation feel more manageable. Drive carefully, Kate replied automatically. The same words she had said when he left for work every morning for 15 years. Call me when you stop for gas. Call me when you get there. Call me every night. I will. William's voice was steady, but Kate could see his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. This is temporary, Kate. Just until I can find something here, or until you can all come out there. This isn't the end of anything. Kate nodded because she didn't trust her voice to speak. She leaned through the window and kissed him, tasting salt from tears she didn't remember shedding. It was supposed to be a quick goodbye kiss, but it lingered, both of them reluctant to break the connection. When they finally pulled apart, William pressed something into her hand. To see his wedding ring? I don't want to lose it on the job sites, he explained, but Kate understood the deeper meaning. He was leaving part of himself behind, trusting her to keep it safe until he could wear it again. The truck began to roll backward down the driveway, and Kate stepped away, clutching the warm gold band in her palm. William raised his hand in a small wave, and she saw him mouth the words, I love you, through the windshield. She mouthed the same words back, hoping he could see them, hoping love would be enough to carry them through whatever came next. The neighbors had tactfully stayed inside, though Kate could see Mrs. Patterson's curtains twitch as the truck pulled Onto the street. The sound of the engine grew fainter as William drove toward the highway that would take him away from everything familiar. Kate stood in the driveway until she couldn't hear the truck anymore, until the street was empty and quiet except for the rustle of autumn leaves. Michael appeared beside her, still in his football gear, looking more like a man than a boy. "Mom, are you okay?" Kate realized she was still holding William's wedding ring so tightly that it had left an impression on her palm. She slipped it onto her own finger, where it hung loose beside her own band. "I will be," she said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Emma joined them in the driveway. The three of them stood together, looking down the street in the direction William had gone. The morning sun was getting stronger, burning off the early fog and promising a clear day ahead. Kate thought about all the mornings she would face without William's coffee brewing in the kitchen, without his off-key humming in the shower, without his goodnight kiss before she fell asleep, but she also thought about Michael's football season and Emma's college courses and the part-time job she might be able to pick up at the community center. Life would continue, different than before, but not necessarily worse. She had been William's wife for 23 years, but she had been Kate Williams for much longer than that. Maybe it was time to remember who that person was. The silence that followed William's departure was different from any quiet Kate had ever experienced. It wasn't peaceful like Sunday morning sleep-ins or comfortable like reading together on the couch. This silence had weight and texture, filling the spaces where William's presence used to be. His empty coffee cup still sat on the kitchen counter. His work boots remained by the back door. His pillow still held the impression of his head from their last night together. Emma stayed for 2 more days before returning to college, and Kate was grateful for her daughter's company. They talked more during those 48 hours than they had in months, sharing fears and hopes with the honesty that crisis sometimes demands. Emma helped Kate reorganize the house, moving furniture to make the rooms feel less empty and packing away some of William's belongings that were too painful to see every day. "It feels wrong, doesn't it?" Emma said as she folded William's sweaters into a storage box, like we're erasing him. "We're not erasing him," Kate replied carefully. "We're just making space for ourselves to breathe while he's gone." Understood what Emma meant. Every small change to their home environment felt like another step away from the life they had shared as a complete family. Michael surprised Kate with his resilience. He maintained his school and football schedules with military precision, as if structure could protect him from the emotional chaos of his father's absence. He mowed the lawn without being asked, fixed the squeaky hinge on the bathroom door, and began checking the locks each night before bed. At 17, he was trying to fill his father's shoes while still figuring out how to fill his own. Kate's first call with William came 18 hours after his departure. His voice sounded tired and small through the phone, distorted by highway noise and distance. He had stopped for the night at a truck stop in Missouri, sleeping in the cab of the pickup to save money on a motel room. "How are the kids?" were his first words. Before even hello. "They're strong," Kate told him. "Emma goes back to school tomorrow, and Michael has practice after school. We're managing." They talked for 20 minutes, sharing mundane details about traffic and weather and the sandwich Kate had made for dinner. Neither of them mentioned how strange it felt to be having this conversation, how the ordinary update felt extraordinary because of the circumstances. When they said goodbye, Kate held the phone to her ear for a full minute after William had hung up, listening to the dial tone as if it might carry some echo of his voice. The first week passed in a blur of adjustment and routine building. Kate picked up extra shifts at the diner, grateful for the distraction of demanding customers and busy lunch rushes. Her feet ached more than usual, but the additional income would help bridge the gap until William's first paycheck arrived. She fell asleep each night exhausted enough that loneliness couldn't keep her awake. Michael's first football game, without William in the stands, was harder than Kate had anticipated. She sat in their usual spot on the bleachers, surrounded by other families who took their togetherness for granted. When Michael scored his first touchdown of the season, Kate's instinct was to look for William's proud grin in the crowd. Instead, she found herself crying into her hands while the cheerleaders celebrated below. Mrs. Patterson approached her after the game with awkward kindness. "How are you holding up, dear?" she asked, and Kate heard genuine concern beneath the neighbor's nosiness. "We're doing fine," Kate replied automatically, the response that had become her default. People wanted to hear that they were fine. The truth was too complicated for casual conversation. William called every night at 7 o'clock. After Kate finished dinner cleanup and before Michael started his homework, they developed a rhythm for these conversations, sharing news about work and school and weather like lifelines thrown across the distance. William had found a small furnished apartment and started his construction job. The work was hard but steady, and his supervisor seemed fair. He was making friends with other crew members, mostly other men who had left families behind to chase work. "I'm saving every penny I can," William told her during their second week of phone calls. "Tom thinks there might be overtime available next month. If I can work 6 days a week, I can send more money home." Kate wanted to tell him not to work himself to death, that they could manage on less money if it meant he could take care of himself. But she also knew that sending money home was how William was coping with the separation. If he couldn't be present for his family, at least he could provide for them. Emma called twice a week, usually while walking between classes on campus. Her grades remained strong, but Kate could hear the worry in her daughter's voice. "How's Dad really doing?" Emma asked during one conversation. "And don't just say, 'He's fine.'" "I can tell when you're protecting me," Kate considered her answer carefully. "He's lonely," she said finally, "and he's working hard. But he's okay. We're all okay, just different than before." The hardest moments came without warning. Kate would reach for 2 coffee cups in the morning before remembering she only needed 1. She would start to tell William about something funny that happened at work before realizing he wasn't sitting across from her at the dinner table. Michael would forget and call Dad when he needed help with something, then catch himself with a look of loss that broke Kate's heart. But there were unexpected gifts in their new routine as well. Kate rediscovered parts of herself that had been dormant during the busy years of raising children and managing a household. She started reading again, checking out library books that William would have found boring. Michael began talking to her more, sharing thoughts and worries he might have taken to his father. Emma's phone calls became longer and more intimate. Daughter to mother, rather than child to parent. 3 weeks after William's departure, Kate received his first envelope of money in the mail. Along with the carefully counted bills, he had included a photo of himself at a job site, wearing a hard hat and grinning despite the exhaustion in his eyes. On the back he had written, "Miss you every day. Love W." Kate put the photo on the refrigerator next to Michael's latest report card and Emma's college newsletter. Their family looked different now, scattered across multiple states and time zones, but they were still a family. Love might not be enough to bring them back together immediately, but it was enough to keep them connected until they could find their way home to each other. 3 months after William's departure, Kate found herself standing in the same spot where she had watched him drive away, but everything had changed. The autumn leaves had fallen and been raked away. Michael's football season had ended with a trip to the state semifinals, a victory William had watched through grainy live streams on his phone from a motel room in Phoenix. Emma had finished her first semester with a 3.8 GPA and a new confidence that surprised them all. And Kate had discovered strength she never knew she possessed. The phone calls had evolved from desperate daily connections to comfortable conversations about ordinary life. William's voice had regained its natural warmth as he settled into his new routine. He had been promoted to crew leader and was making good money. More importantly, he had stopped apologizing for leaving in every conversation. The guilt that had weighed down his words in those first weeks had transformed into determination and hope. "I think I found something," William said during their Sunday evening call. It was late December, and Kate could see her breath in the chilly air as she stood on the front porch, looking at the Christmas lights Michael had hung without being asked. "There's a supervisor position opening up here in the spring. Good pay, benefits, steady hours. Tom thinks I have a real shot at it." Kate felt her heart skip, though she wasn't sure if it was excitement or fear. "That's wonderful," she said carefully. "But what does that mean for us?" William was quiet for a moment, and Kate could hear the sound of traffic from his apartment window. "It means maybe you and Michael could come out here for good. Emma could transfer to Arizona State if she wants, or stay where she is if college. It's going better there, This means maybe we could be a family again, just in a different place. The possibility hung between them like a bridge that might or might not hold their weight. Kate had begun to build a life that didn't revolve around waiting for William's return. She had been promoted to assistant manager at the diner, and the community center had offered her a part-time position teaching basic computer skills to seniors. Michael had been accepted to 3 colleges, all of them in state schools where he could stay close to home. Moving to Arizona would mean starting over again, leaving behind the new roots they had grown in the soil of necessity. "We don't have to decide tonight," William continued, reading her hesitation correctly. "But Kate, I want us to have options. I want us to choose our future instead of just surviving it." That night, Kate lay in bed thinking about choices and survival and the difference between the two. For months, they had been in crisis mode, making decisions based on immediate need rather than long-term dreams. William's phone call had reminded her that they could still shape their destiny. They were not just victims of circumstance, but authors of their own story. She talked to Michael first, on a Saturday morning while they made pancakes together, a tradition she had maintained even though William wasn't there to flip them too high and make her laugh. "How would you feel about moving to Arizona?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Michael considered the question seriously, the way he approached everything important. "Would Dad be happy if we came?" he asked. "I think he would be very happy," Kate replied honestly. "Then I think we should go," Michael said simply. "I can play football anywhere, and Dad's been gone long enough." Emma's response was more complicated. As Kate had expected, "I don't want to leave school," Emma said during their next phone conversation. "I'm finally settled here. I have friends. My professors know me. But I also don't want to be the reason the family stays scattered." Kate had learned many things during William's absence, but perhaps the most important was that love sometimes meant letting people make their own choices. Even when those choices created distance, "You're not responsible for holding this family together," she told her daughter. "You're 20 years old. Your job is to build your own life, not to manage ours." The decision crystallized slowly, like ice forming on a winter pond. Kate realized that what she missed most about William wasn't just his presence, but his partnership. The daily collaboration of marriage, the way they had tackled problems together, the comfort of shared responsibility. She had proven to herself that she could manage alone, but that didn't mean she wanted to continue doing so. On a cold February morning, Kate called William with her answer. "If you get that supervisor job," she said, "Michael and I will come to Arizona. Emma can stay here and finish college and maybe spend summers with us. We'll make it work." William's silence lasted so long that Kate wondered if the call had dropped. Finally he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you sure? I don't want you to give up what you've built there." "What I've built is the ability to start over," Kate replied. "I can do that anywhere, as long as we're doing it together." 2 weeks later, William called with news that he had gotten the promotion. They began making plans for Kate and Michael to join him after Michael's high school graduation in May. There would be challenges ahead, new jobs to find, new schools to navigate, new communities to join. But they would face those challenges. As a family again, Kate stood at her kitchen window one final time, looking out at the yard where her children had played, where she had watched William load his truck on that terrible October morning. The silence that had once felt so heavy now felt full of possibility. Sometimes the most important conversations happened without words at all, in the space between goodbye and hello again. In the quiet certainty that love was strong enough to cross any distance, survive any separation, and begin again in any place that welcomed it.